Hey everybody, welcome to Shifty's Club. Today, I'm going to talk about the new Flashfire set and my ideas on how the Flashfire set will change the format. Check it out. Before we get started, I want to tell you guys that this video is not going to be scripted out. Just for time constraints, and I'm really short on time as of right now, so I'll pretty much just get to the chase and cut out most of it. What we're looking forward to in this new Flashfire set is plenty of new Pokemon and trainers that we can use to help make our format a lot easier. The first one I'm going to talk about is Shiftry. Shiftry is a great Pokemon. It has a great ability which allows you to discard a Grass Energy card from your hand and draw 3 cards. Drawback: it has to be a Grass Energy. So you really can't use this in decks such as, say, Emboar or Blastoise, who already lend enough energy in order to get your attacks off and have some left over. But of course, it comes with a handy little basic Pokemon, Seedot. Seedot's great. For what reason? Well, glad you asked. Its attack, Call for Family, allows you to search your deck for basic Pokemon, put it on your bench, and shuffle your deck afterward. So that is a nice little boost to what Shiftry could possibly be in this format. Not saying it's going to do well at all, but at least we can tell from this instance that Shiftry can possibly be used depending on whether or not we find the right matchup for it. However, several players have already tried fitting it with Melodic, which I'll get to later, because let's talk about it in order of type advantage. The next one I want to talk about is the Charizard with Stoke. I like this Pokemon in particular for one reason. It allows you to get 3 basic energy cards and attach them to Charizard from your deck. Now, there is a catch. You have to flip a coin, unfortunately. But, luckily, we have a little partner in Victini from the Legendary Treasure set, which I'm not going to show any of these Pokemon that are not in the set. I'll just let you guys research them for yourself, just to save a little bit of time. Anyway, with Victini, it allows you to flip again. So, with Stoke, you can flip. If you get heads, great, keep it. But if you get tails, then you can always go back and try to flip heads again. I myself have actually tried to use this deck in conjunction with Virizion EX and Darkrai EX to prevent most other decks from being able to take advantage of a few of Charizard EX's weaknesses. And remember, because Stoke does require a colorless, and Fire Blast requires only 1 fire out of 4 energy, the 3 others which are colorless. You can run it with pretty much anything that could help Charizard EX out of the situations you really don't want it to get into. The second one, however, is the one that's being more hyped. This one is the Combustion Blast Charizard. Its first attack, wing attack for 3 energy is okay. And I'll just leave it at that. It is okay. If you can't get the other fire energy on it fast enough, then wing attack does provide some sort of advantage with the DCE and another energy. Most people have tried to combo this with cards I'll get to later, like Fury Torch and Blacksmith. These particular cards, they really do work with Charizard EX, and when I get to them later, you'll see exactly why. The only drawback with this particular Pokemon is that Combustion Blast does 150, but it can't use Combustion Blast next turn. So the real only way to solve this problem is to fuel up 2 Charizards and attempt to find a way to bring one out after another. And even then, having 2 Charizard EX rotating is still going to be a little bulky. So we'll see how Charizard EX by itself plays out in a deck. And of course, with a set called Flashfire, Charizard should be getting a Mega Evolution. And hence we get two Mega Evolutions. The first one is the Fire type, which is the Y version Charizard when it's holding the I'm not exactly sure what the item is in game. However, it's definitely in the Y version. And the coolest thing about Mega Charizard is that with 220 HP, he's able to use Crimson Dive for 300 damage, 2 fire and 3 colorless. Now, I'll get to the other one later, but this really does work. Now, the only problem is you're never really going to want to do 300 damage. I mean, it's not like people use Black Kyurem EX with the Crystal Wall. So there's really no reason for the extra bulky damage. However, it does take care of any Mega Pokemon out there. The drawback is that it does 50 damage to itself. Now, I could see this being played with Protection Cube, which I'll get to later. But other than that, I really can't see Charizard EX being used for its Mega Evolution, as hence this particular evolution. However, most people have been trying the Dragon type Mega Charizard, which has 10 extra HP and is a Dragon type with a Fairy weakness instead of a Fire type with a Water weakness. And it has the same amount of damage in its attack, Wild Blaze, for 300. But in this one, it's not 2 fire and 3 colorless. It's 2 fire, dark, and 2 colorless. In the catch, you discard the top 5 cards of your deck. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this particular Charizard. I, for one, would probably rather go with the Fire-type Charizard just because I wouldn't want to be discarding key resources that I could use later on in the game and I can't really get back. Of course, with that one Darkness energy, you'd assume a player would run Sableye. But, say for instance, you run into pure luck and you discard a double colorless that would be crucial, and you end up discarding other cards such as, say, that one stadium card that you need to help complete a setup. So I do see this being potentially good, but I think more bad comes out of the Dragon type than it does the Fire type. Next, we have one of the most hyped Pokemon from this set, and let me tell you, this Pokemon really does work. Pyroar. Pyroar is a stage 1, 110 HP, and its ability, Intimidating Mane, is what gets critics talking. It says, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. That's right, there goes all of your EX Pokemon, excluding the Mega Pokemon EX, and most of your bulky basic attackers. So, now players are going to have to search for a new way to get around Pyroar. And believe me, getting around Pyroar is not going to be easy, especially when players have been trying to pair it with the Archeops from the next Destiny set, I believe it is. And it might be the Dark Explorers. However, its ability basically says that your opponent's Pokemon cannot evolve. And this is really gonna hurt those particular decks because everything is gonna stay basic. Now, there are ways around this strategy. However, not too many players are going to be trying to tech against this matchup too much because there's not really much you can do. There's just a few strategies that you'd have to get off really fast in order to beat this deck. However, I've even seen one Japanese player, I'm not going to mention his name right now, but he did try to play Golurk, which is the Devolution Punch Pokemon, and it does work. Because, and let me say this, with even Rainbow Energy and a DCE, you are devolving your opponent's Pokemon in the active slot. After a catcher Lysander, there goes their Garbodor, and they can't evolve back. And, well, what's the problem with this? Well, because even if you set up late, you still have that option to bring Garbodor back into their hand and prevent them from evolving again. So this deck is receiving so much hype, yet critics are also trying to create some bad situation out of this entire deck. However, my opinion, Pyroar will be a threat at the National Championship. You can bet on it. The next Pokemon I'm going to talk about is a Pokemon I mentioned earlier with Shiftry, and that's Melodic. Melodic has an ability that says Energy Grace. Once during your turn before your attack, you may knock out this Pokemon. If you do, attach 3 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, excluding Pokemon EX. Wow. So this right here is what we're expecting Shiftry to be paired up with. And without a doubt, it seems like a very synergetic combo. Basically, with Melodic, you are indeed bringing about the energy that you discard with Shiftry. And you really don't even have to attack with Shiftry, even though it would be a great idea. You just attach it to a Pokemon you really feel would make an impact. Of course, my particular opinion, play Venusaur and or Mega Venusaur. This particular deck may have a chance with the Venusaur EX, and for a good reason. The Mega Venusaur does allow paralysis. However, it's way too slow to be getting up because it takes so much energy, and it is a Mega Pokemon after all. And there's not a lot of acceleration around this particular game for the grass type. So Melodic does provide some sort of synergy to this particular combo. And we will be seeing this at National Championships. Will it be heavily seen? Probably not. But players will be trying to make it something out of this deck. You can near about bet on it. The next Pokemon I'm going to talk about is a very weird Pokemon in my opinion. However, I have seen pretty much a lot of people attempting to focus an entire deck around this Pokemon, and I really don't see how it's going to work. And it's Luxio. Luxio has only 80 HP, and it is a stage 1. And its attack takes 2 lightning and a colorless, and it says electric counter. And it says this attack does 40 damage times the number of prize cards your opponent has taken. I really don't see how in the world players can be using this strategy, even though I've heard plenty of hype about this card. I really don't see it making that big of a splash, but I figured I'd at least talk about it. And its stage 2 is not even that great itself. I could see it being more playable than its stage 1. And for lightning and a colorless, Fang Snipe does 40 damage and says your opponent can't reveal his or her hand and discard a trainer card you find there. That really doesn't seem like too much of hype to me. I mean, I could see the card being slightly playable, but I really can't see it being that great in the metagame. Duskull is a Pokemon with also a stage 2 that has potential in the game. For 1 colorless, Revival says put a basic Pokemon for your opponent's discard pile onto his or her bench. That is not a bad attack at all. And basically what this does is either allows you to get a very easy Genesect EX swipe, a Lysander, catcher, whatever you have, or even helping your own bench size for Colress. Either way, it does work. And even Empoleon could make use of this particular Pokemon. If you guys remember the Dark Explorers Empoleon, it runs Dusknoir from the Boundaries Cross. And it can even use this Duskull to help aid whenever, say, Juniper or Ultra Ball has already discarded basic Pokemon that they don't want, you can always just put them back onto their bench, and when they don't even want them on the bench. So it does help in somewhat of a disruption case, but I really can't see it working that well. However, the Dusknoir has an ability, Shadow Void. It says as often as you like during your turn, you may move one damage counter from one of your Pokemon to this Pokemon. I don't see this working that well, but you can play Max Potion. Finally, you have an option outside of energy, pretty much energy switch decks, to use Max Potion effectively. Pain Pellets I'm not going to get into too much talk about because it's not as great as most people would assume. And even if you like the particular deck, I don't see it working that well. Meowstic is a very interesting card. For 1 energy, Ear Influence says move as many damage counters as I'm not even going to read it. Basically, you rearrange your opponent's damage counters. That's it. If you can find a good deck for this to work, let me know, because I really want to see this deck work. Now, unfortunately, none of the fighting Pokemon ended up being really good. Barbarcle, I'm not even going to get into, so I'm not even going to show the picture because it's really not worth even looking at. But I will talk about Fortress after skipping over the dark types. Thorn Tempest says, when you play this Pokemon, from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may put a damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Not bad, but still not really that good. I'm not going to really get into most of your other Pokemon, but Floette says, Flower Veil, each of your grass Pokemon get 20 plus HP. The Florges has pretty much the coolest attack combos I've seen in my life. For 1 colorless, search for any 3 cards. For a fairy, spread 20. And I can see this somewhat working, but not in too much of a sense. Carbink is a very interesting card, but I'm not going to get into it because I really don't see any way for it to be effective in the metagame. Druddigon, however, for double colorless, Revenge does 20 plus 70 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, which is completely amazing. I love that card. And trust me, it will be seen in decks at the National Championship. Dragalge is another interesting Pokemon. An ability that says your opponent's poison Pokemon can't retreat. That's pretty amazing. And I'm going to get off the Kangaskhan EX. This is a good Pokemon. For 1 energy, draw 3 cards. 180 HP. It's a good setup Pokemon. But its second attack's not that good. However, its Mega is going to make it a lot better. It can be seen with plenty of different decks being a colorless. Wham Bam Punch does 100, and you flip till you get tails, and it does 30 more for each hits. I really don't see it being the best deck in format. However, I think some players will try to make something out of this deck, regardless what it is. Miltank I'm going to talk about because it can be used as a very early lead-taking Pokemon. For 1 colorless, Powerful Friend says if you have any Stage 2 Pokemon on your bench, this tech does 10 damage plus 70 more damage. So, altogether, 80 damage for 1 Stage 2. And I think this may have somewhat of a place in the metagame if someone comes up with the right combo. I'm not going to get too much into the trainer lines. However, I'll just let them pretty much sit on the screen. First, you have Blacksmith, which says attach 2 fire energy cards from your discard pile to one of your fire Pokemon. Fury Torch says discard a fire energy card from your hand. If you can't discard a fire energy card, you can't play this card. Draw 2 cards. Lysander, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with his or her active Pokemon. Magnetic Storm, each Pokemon in play has no resistance. Palpad, shuffle 2 supporter cards from your discard pile into your deck. Pokemon Center Lady, heal 60 damage and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. Pokemon Fan Club, search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. Protection Cube, prevent all damage done to the Pokemon this card is attached to by attacks it uses. Sacred Ash, shuffle 5 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. Startling Megaphone, discard all Pokemon tool cards attached to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Trick Shovel, look at the top card of either player's deck. You may discard that card or return it to the top of the deck. Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand. If you can't discard 2 cards, you can't play this card. Search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Shuffle your deck afterward. Well, that's pretty much all we really have for the new set, and I'm really curious as to see how the Flashfire set will impact this entire game. Now, I'm not going to say that this entire format is really going to be about anything, but I really am curious to see how this particular format does at both the National Championships and after it concludes the World Championships. However, I can't really say what deck I'm going to use because I'm still unsure about what deck I'm going to use. However, I guarantee you that I will try my best to make a splash at the National Championship or the World Championship, depending on if I get to go. So, that's it for the Flashfire set, and I hope you guys got as much out of the Flashfire set as I did. However, I know that some people really are not too thrilled about the new Flashfire set. However, there's one deck in particular which players which play it are going to be very happy about this set, and that's Raybor, which I explained in my last video is Rayquaza EX and Emboar combined with Delphox from X and Y. Now they have both Blacksmith and Fairy Torch to help aid in their setup, and they also have a potential attacker in Charizard EX. So I'll leave that for you guys, and we'll see how the Flashfire set impacts our format, but only time. Well, guys, this new Flashfire set has given us a lot to think about. Tons of new cards to use, few of them actually really playable strategies. We have great trainers that are definitely going to be staples in the meta game, and even a couple of megas that may actually have some potential in the Tier 1, Tier 2 category. But only time will tell. And testing, and even more testing will only result on how these decks are going to be played and whether they will be played or not. And when they are played, will they win? Alright, until next time, guys, take care, and I'll see you next time at Shifty's Club.